Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Circles Big View. We're thrilled at this turnout. This is really great. Thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Christina Williams. I'm the Executive Director of Innovative Poverty Solutions, and we're the nonprofit that has launched Circles NWA. So Circles is a new initiative for our community, but it's based on the national Circles USA model, which has been around for over 20 years, and there's chapters in 80 communities across the US and Canada. But this is the first one here for the state of Arkansas. So when we look at Northwest Arkansas, at our community, it's not hard to see all the amazing things that are happening here. But we chose to bring Circles here to this community because we saw that there was not a whole lot of focus on poverty reduction. And that when we looked at what was happening, we saw that we spent a lot of time and money managing poverty, not reducing it. And so Circles is that next step for families that want to achieve upward mobility and get into a place of economic stability or economic self-sufficiency. So in Circles, we focus on upward mobility. Our participants are called Circle Leaders, and they develop SMART goals aimed at achieving increase in income, expanding their social connections and their social capital, and they're positioned to assume the position of leader in the process. And so our Circle Leaders are matched with 2 to 3 volunteer allies who typically come from more of a middle or upper income background. And they bring to the table their skills and their resources, their connections, and their social capital. And they walk alongside the Circle Leader on this journey to support them in the process. And so we have an amazing first cohort of Circle Leaders and allies who have dedicated themselves to training, to prepare for this journey, and have recently been matched together. And they've started working to set and achieve their SMART goals. So if you're part of our first cohort of Circle Leaders and allies, can you stand up? Yes. Thank you. We're so proud of them and thankful for their commitment to this process. So Circles has 2 goals. The first is to help families move up and out of that survival mode to a place of long-term stability. The second concurrent goal of Circles is to work as a community to remove the barriers that keep people stuck in that place of barely able to make ends meet. And there are a lot of these barriers. One that we spend a lot of time talking about at Circles is the cliff effect. It's this thing that happens to hardworking people as they work to increase their income, as they get a raise, that they can suddenly become ineligible or disqualified from certain benefits they were receiving, like housing vouchers or Medicaid or child care vouchers. And they end up netting out worse off than when they started. Because the reality that is getting a $2 to $3 hour a raise will not make up for the cost of housing in this community. And so it's a barrier. And it keeps people from moving up despite having a job and despite working really hard. And so when we say barriers like the cliff effect, we're talking about these obstacles that are in place that no matter how hard you work, there's something structural, something bigger than any one person that is standing in the way, that's holding people back, that is actually working against, a lot of times, the progress that they've been making. And so at Circles Big View, this is where we want to take a broader look at our community and ask ourselves, what's happening at the community level? What are those systems and structures and barriers that stand in the way of actually seeing poverty reduced in our community? What are those patterns that we are seeing happen over and over again that raise a red flag or that might give us pause, make us think, maybe this doesn't seem like a good thing for our community? Or maybe this isn't the kind of community we want to have, or the community we want to be. At Circles, we look to those people who experience these barriers, who interact with our community's systems, to lead us in this work that we're doing. So the role of Circle Leader is no empty title here. Experience is a great teacher, especially when many of us have not interacted or had experience with some of these systems. We haven't learned how to navigate the jail system or Section 8 housing or DHS or public transit or the cliff effect or even what it feels like to be unable to pay a traffic citation. So the theme of tonight is becoming visible. And it's our hope that the things that are often invisible to us as a broader community will become visible. We want the underheard voices in our community to be amplified, and this underutilized experience and the strengths that our circle leaders have and people like them, we want them to be given a place of leadership and a real voice of influence in our community. So we all know how polarized things have become in our country. We spend a lot of time not listening to each other or debating, arguing about who is right and who is wrong. What we want to do is to enter into dialogue. So poverty is a complex issue, and it's not something that any one individual or any one organization can resolve on their own. And we actually believe that dialogue is a way that we can think together as a community, that we can relax our grip on certainty and begin to listen with a sense of possibility of what could be. So we want to begin a dialogue tonight. And what better way to start a dialogue than to be led by people who actually know our community systems, those who have personally experienced them, have felt them, have been squeezed by them. And the hope is that each of us walks away with more than what we entered in with. So tonight we focus on this invisible system in our community, the vast and deep system of fines and fees. And we focus on this not because we're expert on this particular system, but because of the ways that fines and fees can serve as a ball and chain to people as they're working really hard to climb out of poverty. So we'll begin tonight providing some context for this conversation. Our Big View team of volunteers has done an amazing job researching and learning about this. They've made calls to our district courts, our circuit courts, to our city prosecuting attorney here in Fayetteville, and spoken to a lot of nonprofit leaders across the state who specialize in this area. And then we get to hear from Shalitha Parks, one of our amazing circle leaders. Her leadership, her input, and her perspective on this have been a driving force for us in the work that we're doing. And it's the reason we've chosen to focus on fines and fees for our first Big View. So with that, I'd like to welcome Lindsay Mast to the stage. She's from our Big View team, and she's going to lay the groundwork for our dialogue tonight. Please welcome Lindsay.
Wow, it is great to have you all here tonight. So let me just reiterate, thank you for coming to join this conversation tonight about fines and fees in our community and what that looks like. As Christina mentioned, we've listened to our circle leaders and specifically how they've been directly impacted by fines and fees in very significant ways in their lives. And we knew that we needed to learn more about the system, how things work, something maybe some of us haven't experienced, to gain understanding and then to hopefully be able to identify barriers that we could remove. So I've learned a lot in the research process that I didn't know. It's been a humbling experience for sure. And I'm hopeful that sharing some of those things that I learned with you tonight will actually be helpful for you as well. As a starting point for our discussion, I'd love for us to just begin by defining fines and fees. I didn't know the difference. I just knew we paid them. Specifically, fines are monetary punishments for infractions, misdemeanors, or felonies. And fines are specifically intended to deter crime and to punish a violator. Fines are determined by our Arkansas Code, which is law that we agree to, and there are minimums and maximums, so a range that you can be charged for a violation based on this Arkansas Code. Fines are paid to local, state, or federal agencies who are prosecuting the crime. On the other hand, fees are payments for court activities or for being supervised or incarcerated, and those fees are charged to the violator, a person who's been found guilty of those infractions. These are intended to specifically support the work or finance the operational cost of the criminal justice system. So we pass fees along. As I thought about my own experience, I remembered I have paid some fines and fees myself for a traffic violation. have a tendency to drive a little faster than the city of Fayetteville thinks is a good idea. And I'm going to go out on a limb and imagine that I'm probably not the only person in the room tonight who's ever done that. So in visiting with my friend and circle leader Shalitha, I realized that our experiences in both getting a traffic violation and then how we had to resolve that traffic violation were markedly different. So tonight, as a way of kind of explaining this research and kind of how the system works, I'd love to walk us through an example of what that can look like for a person A and a person B, and just specifically those people having varying financial means, what that looks like. So person A and person B both get pulled over. They're going 12 miles per hour over the speed limit in a bit of a rush. And they also have a taillight out on their vehicle. And so a City of Fayetteville police officer pulls them over, of course, asks for proof of insurance and vehicle registration, and ends up issuing a citation for the two violations. One is for speeding and one is for the taillight being out. Both people, as directed, call the district court to find out how much these violations will cost them in fines and fees. So just quickly, because of those ranges, we chose an in-the-middle range tonight. Both a speeding ticket and having a taillight out can go from $0 to $100. For our example tonight, we chose to choose right in the middle. So it's a $50 fine for speeding, a $50 fine for a taillight out, and then for every single infraction or violation or ticket, the court goes ahead and adds a $75 flat fee as a court fee on every violation, and then additionally the county goes ahead and pops on their $25 fee as well. So at the end of this, we have $100 in fines, which are what are intended to deter me from driving too fast or keeping my taillights working, and then another $100 in just fees to process organizationally this violation. So we're all supposed to pay that really immediately, or as before our court dates. We get set, and there's a date set by the court that you need to either have paid or appear before the judge. So we'll start with person A. We'll look at how this plays out. The road really splits here. Person A, although very frustrated by and probably put out by having to pay $200 for these infractions, thankfully does have $200 available and is able to do it. And so that person may go down to the courthouse on their lunch break. They likely have maybe a salaried position where they get a lunch break. The court's open Monday through Friday, only 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., so just really during business hours. And this person is able to pay the fine in full, the fines and fees in full. And really, this is the end of the road. Done deal. Person A moves on with their life with no further interruptions. As we looked at person B, they don't have $200 available. And this is, for many people, this is the case. No $200 laying around. And so the only option is to actually go to court, to the stated court date. And so realizing that they'll have to go appear before the judge on the stated date on the citation, which is not chosen by them, they have to go ahead and take off work for the day. And the reason you have to take off the whole day of work is anytime you have to go appear before the judge, you just get a date. You're expected, all parties that day are expected to show up when court begins, and you just wait your turn until your name is called. And so this means you could be called at 8 in the morning or you could be called at 2:30 in the afternoon. You just wait. So by taking time to attend court, which person B is only having to do because they didn't have $200 accessible, they've now lost wages that day of about $88. And that's just assuming that they're making minimum wage in Arkansas, which is $11 an hour. And they were planning to work 8 hours that day. So we've already lost income over just having to attend court. And the impacts here for person B are just beginning to stack up. At court, person B tells the judge, I'm just not able to pay. It's financial hardship. It's just a really hard time right now. I don't have $200. These people, all of us, have to maintain housing, maintain our car insurance, have fuel to get us to and from our jobs, carry our kids around to where they need to go, of course, feed and clothe our family. And so there's just not a lot of money left over. Often, almost never, when we're working minimum wage jobs and working 40 hours a week, the monthly income for a person doing that is only $1,760 to pay for all of life's expenses, be that for a single person, or an individual, or a family. This $200 charge in fines and fees actually represents 11.4% of that person's monthly income. That's a significant financial hardship. So, since person B has told the judge they can't pay, the judge offers a payment plan. And the minimum payment that is accepted by our district court is $25 a month on a payment plan. So with a $200 fine, it'll take 8 months for this person to pay for their traffic violation. But when offered the payment plan, and if you take them up on the payment plan, the court says, we're glad to help you with that, but every month that you're on the payment plan, making on-time payments as directed by the court at $25 a month, let's go ahead and tack on another $10 fee for every month that you maintain a balance with the court. And so you quickly can do math on this to figure out that now that's $130 of additional fees. If I make payments on time, every time, I've added another $130 of fees just for being on the payment plan. That's not for missing any payments, that's for doing just as we agreed. So now person B is going to spend 14 months on this plan, making payments. For over a year, this person is spending 2.5 hours of their work every month just to pay the court a fee. Let's remember that these violations that we're talking about are things that for many of us, we've probably received a warning before. But this is becoming an even heavier financial hardship for this person. This financial hardship has high potential to affect many other monthly payments, like paying rent late, or having utilities cut off, or lapsing car insurance, or food scarcity. And any one of these things can bring on an entire new set of fees and fines associated, getting further and further behind. So as we take a step back and just look back at our road and how the roads diverge here, and from all these details, we can see that one person had $200 available and only pays that $200 using a lunch break provided during court hours. So a small inconvenience, but they were able to solve the issue with a really quick trip to the court or to the clerk to make a payment drop-off. The other person actually ends up paying 65% more, or $130 more, for a total of $330 in fines and fees. And let's remember, these are the same citations. Both people were going over the speed limit and both had a tail light out. I think it's really important to just pause and note here that the single difference between these people was ability to pay or financial means. That's the only difference. But their experiences with fines and fees were vastly different, from the time they spent working to solve the problem, to loss of income, making it even more challenging, and then finally, an actual cost to them, $200 versus $330. These are markedly different experiences. It's not all equal. Person B has truly experienced the stacking or domino effect of poverty. I want to just touch on a few additional things that can happen when we're struggling to pay fines and fees. Failure to pay is its own citation. So that's if you miss payments to the court, you can be charged with failure to pay. And that results in, as you can imagine, additional charges. So a warrant can be issued for your arrest. And if a warrant is issued for your arrest, imagine that there's a fee associated that'll be charged back to you. Of course, that often will land you in jail, where you will stay until you can bond out. A driver's license can be suspended for failure to pay as well. So that means you're no longer able to legally drive until all of your fines or fees are paid. Nationally, 40% of our driver's license suspensions are from failure to pay. That's a significant amount. Obviously, without having a driver's license or being able to drive legally, more significant hardship, hard to get to work, hard to take care of a family when I can't drive legally. Once all the fines and fees are paid and I'm ready to have my license reinstated, the court's ready to do that for a $150 reinstatement fee for your license. As fines and fees continue stacking, and that's exactly what they do in these situations between failure to pay, failure to appear, late payment fees, payment plan fees, the road really leads all the time to jail time, to eventually just being put in jail. And if you get there, you have the option to work off your fines and fees to the tune of sitting in jail for $40 of credit per day at the Washington County Jail. Judges in Arkansas have a significant amount of power and discretion, as we talked about the code, minimums and maximums, in terms of what they choose to sentence each violation with. For example, a judge has the power to require public service, or to allow you to do public service to, again, kind of work off those fines and fees at a rate of $15 per hour. And although I'd like to say I'm appreciative of that plan, the reality is for many people with limited financial means, they also don't have a lot of time to go volunteer between the hours of 8 and 5 at a local nonprofit. And so although this is an option, it's very inaccessible. One last note to share with you on fines and fees in our city of Fayetteville. So last night, the city council met, and they were expected to approve the 2022 budget for our city. It did get tabled till December 7th, but they've worked on it quite a long time at this point, so it's pretty final. The city of Fayetteville is currently projecting 1.5% of their general operating revenue to come from fines and fees from our community members. Specifically, the city of Fayetteville believes that our community members will pay $853,000 in 2022 in fines and fees for some of the violations that we've talked about here tonight. Our city currently has a system that depends on this funding through fines and fees to literally operate our city. I hope tonight there are a couple of things that you'll consider. I know I kind of probably threw a lot at you, but thanks for taking time to listen and to be here.
Thank you, Lindsay. Now I'd like to invite Shalitha Parks to the stage. Can make sure your mic is on. Okay, here we go. Okay. So we're really lucky to get to hear from Shalitha Parks today. And Shalitha is one of our circle leaders in our first cohort, and she's also a member of our Big View team. So welcome, Shalitha.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So to start, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here?
Sure. Hi, my name is Shalitha Parks. I am a caregiver in home health. I am a part-time cashier food service worker for Chartwell's company at the U of A. And I am a mother of 3 adult children. That's 1 daughter and 2 sons. And I am a nana of 6 granddaughters. That means 6 granddaughters, okay? And I'm also a circle leader. And the reason I am a circle leader is because I want to define my strength and break barriers in our community with poverty. And I'm here today to share my experience with personal fines and fees.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the work that you've put in to prepare for this. She's put in a lot of time, a lot of hours, and just for leading us in this process. Okay, so we're here to talk about fines and fees, and can you talk a little bit about why the issue of fines and fees matters to you?
Yes, it matters to me because it affects my children, my son and daughter. It affects my husband, Titus, and it also affects me personally. And I have a lot of stories that I could tell. First, I want to start by sharing a story about my daughter. She was recently incarcerated on the 28th of October. And the reason why she was incarcerated is due to unpaid fines. So that led to her having a warrant prior to her trying to get her ducks in a row, moving up here from another city, trying to find a job, trying to find housing, and that didn't go so well with her. Just on a typical day, she was just leaving from work as she moved to Fort Smith, just starting, trying to get herself together. And just one day, she just got pulled over. And she got pulled over, and she was calling me. And when she called me, it touched me because seeing my daughter being pulled over by the police officer, and I was on the phone with her, and I was just trying to tell her, just calm down. She said, Mom, I'll probably be going to jail. And I said, why? She said, I have a warrant. I said, what is the warrant for? She said, for not having insurance on a car prior to her moving to Fort Smith. So as the officer approached her, she was asked to have her driver's license pulled out, and she said, I'm going to be honest, my license are suspended. And he said, why? She said, because I didn't have no insurance. So he went back to the car, and he came back 5 minutes later. He said, Miss Relford, can you please get out the car? I said, oh my gosh, you finna go to jail? She said, yes, Mama, I am. And so she did, and by her going into the back of the car, it kind of just made me feel helpless, where I couldn't help her at all because of the situation, while she was just trying to, make things better for her, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, so this story, when we decided to do this theme tonight, this story hadn't even happened. So this is really new in her life and in your life. How has it affected her life?
Well, when she ended up going to court on the date of the 28th, prior to her getting a citation, which cost her $315 just for driving with suspended license, she ended up going to court, so that's like taking a day off when she couldn't take a day off. So she took a day off to go to court, not knowing she was going to go to jail, so the judge ended up giving her 18 days for the unpaid fine. So that means she lost her job. That means she had a house. She didn't know if she was going to come back to it. She ended up losing her car on top of that.
How did this make you feel as a mother?
Helpless, where I couldn't do anything for her. I couldn't reach out to her. I was not able to talk to her. She lost her car because she wasn't able to pick up her check. I wasn't able to go pick up her check to pay her bills, to make sure she had a car. So it just hurt me to see my daughter go to jail.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that experience. Now, you've shared with me some of your personal experience with fines and fees, and one story in particular kept coming up, and it's the one about the $10 belt. Could you share that story with us?
Sure. Okay, I am 50 years old, but long time ago, I was going to JCPenney's with a friend, not knowing we was going in there to shop for a belt, but somehow we came out with a belt, and the belt was on her. And so as we was approaching to leave the store, we got caught, and she had a possession on her, and it was $10. But going to jail with handcuffs, riding in the back seat of a police car, I was like, oh my goodness, what I'm gonna tell my mom I'm finna go to jail behind a $10 belt. So I ended up going to jail, and I ended up having to be in front of the judge that day, and he gave me 7 days in jail because it was a misdemeanor, and it was under $500. So anything under $500 is a misdemeanor. Anything over could be a felon.
So you went to jail simply because you were with your friend?
And I was accessory to the fact that she stole, and it was better for me to say I was guilty.
That's really impactful, because I think that's actually counter to what a lot of us might think, is that it's actually better to say you're guilty than to not and be innocent. But that's what happened to you.
Yes.
So what does it feel like to stand before a judge?
Well, you have to be prepared to go in front of the judge. That's just like you have to be dressed and ready as you're going in for a job interview. You got to make sure you have to be there on time. You got to make sure that you have to have extra time to get there. If anything happens, like a delay, if your car breaks down, you're going to have to make sure you have to call the court clerk, and you have to let them know you're going to be late for that reason. And going in front of the judge, you have to be respectfully towards him. When your name is called, as Lindsay was saying earlier, you have to wait. So my name being as a P, I didn't get to see the judge about 2:30 that afternoon. So from 10 to 2:30, you sitting and sitting while everybody else is being called. So once you get called, you have to go to front of a podium, and you will have to stand there facing the judge. And once the judge is talking to you, you have to listen to him, and you have to answer the question that he asked you. That means, do you understand these questions that I just read to you, or you know what the charges are here today? I said, yes, sir. So that means you have to say to him, yes, Your Honor, to him or her.
So what do you wish was different going before a judge?
What I wish would be different is that they would not incarcerate a person for a non-payment of paying a fine.
What kind of things do you wish they might consider?
Ask questions. Ask if they are ability to pay. Do you have a job? How much do you make? Can you afford to make this payment? So it goes to either you can pay the payment, or you can ask to apply for community service.
I think it's really striking to me that the data is showing how many people are in jail because of failure to appear, failure to pay. That's a huge chunk of the people in our jail right now, which is not normally what I would picture of people being in jail. But when we were talking about this earlier, you gave me some good context for why people would fail to pay, fail to appear. What are some of those things that you've experienced or you've seen?
The failure to appear?
Yeah, why people?
Well, it's because jail overcrowding, for one, is why people are in jail, because they don't have the ability to pay. They don't have the money to bond out. You know, when they don't have the money to bond out, most people is the reason why they don't show up for court. They end up with warrants because they don't show up to court. Failure to appear is where you don't show up for court. So when you don't show up for court, there is a bench warrant. So when you have a bench warrant and you get pulled over, oh, you have a warrant. So you go to jail on that warrant. Then you got a court fees on top of that. Then you got a payment on top of that. So it just don't go away. It just keep going and keep going.
Yeah. So Lindsay shared some about payment plans. Can you share with us a little bit about what that is and your experience with it?
Well, the payment plan is something that the judge would ask you if you are able to pay this fine. So if you say, yeah, you can pay the fine, that means he's going to ask you to go out, talk to the clerks, set up a payment plan. You get a payment plan, and then it's a 30-day occurrence. So within that payment plan, the time that you make the payment, within 30 days, if you don't pay within 30 days, there's a $25 fee on top of that. Added to the fee that you got to pay.
Yeah, this is the stacking thing that you were referencing. So when you think of all the other areas of your life, job, housing, paying bills, how are all these areas impacted because of fines and fees?
It can impact you by emotionally. It can stop you from owning your own home. It can impact you for the ability to find a job. It just don't stop. It just makes you feel helpless, like you try to put one foot in the door and the other one, just gets knocked down. So I just don't understand why it keeps making me struggle like it does, but it does impact me a lot because of my children and my husband being incarcerated.
Yeah, it sounds like it just requires so much. And I'm curious, what has this kept you from being able to do in your life?
Just basically it keeps me down. It gives me a low self-esteem. It feels like when I'm driving, even though I have license, still today, if the police got behind me, I would still be nervous because it seems like you can be targeted just parking wrong, or I'm on the wrong side of the street. Just anything that you do or make a wrong turn, you can be targeted just for the small things. Even if your fence ain't painted on the right side. If your fence ain't painted right, you can get a ticket for it.
Yeah. And then it often results in having to go to jail.
Yes.
What has that experience been like?
Going to jail is mentally, it puts you in a situation where everything on the outside stops when you're inside because you don't know what's going on. So you in a cell, you go in booking, you get booked in, you get fingerprinted, you get a mug shot, and then you have a number. And once you have a number that's registered, so that number will stay with you when you get out. When you get pulled over, it automatically will register you in the system.
Are there any other stories you'd like to share tonight?
I guess I would share this story. It happened with me and my husband. One night we was driving, and I was driving, and we was in a designated area of a community, and we happened to be leaving that area, and I got pulled over just because my light was out over my tag, and the officer pulled us over, and he said, I pulled you over because your light was out on your tag. And I said, okay, I can get that fixed. He said, well, do you know where you was coming from? I said, yes. He said, well, do you know the area you was in? Yes. He said, well, we was over there because that area is drug, known. I said, okay, what that have to do with me? He said, well, I would like to know if you knew anybody over there. I said, I don't know nobody, sir. I'm just trying to go home. He said, well, do you mind if I can get your license registration? I said, sure. He said, well, can you step out the car? And I said, for what? You're not pulling me over to search my car. He said, well, if you don't let me search your car, you could be lying. And I said, why am I lying about something that's not in my car, you think? So it goes to show you that you can get pulled over for one thing, and the next thing, they want to keep finding something until they can get you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I can feel the frustration and stress and anxiety in that story, and really it's hard for someone like me, I think, to know what that experience is like, because that hasn't happened to me before. So for our final question, I would like to know why you think this is an issue that should matter for us as a community.
I think as our community, I think the issue matters is because, for one, it's hard enough for me as a mother trying to already pay my bills, let alone trying to pay the fines and fees on top of that. And I have a lot of stories, I could continue to tell, but there's people like me with stories as well. And we just all want to be understood, and we just want to be heard.
Understood and heard, yeah. Thank you so much, Shalitha. Thanks for sharing your stories. Thanks for being here and for being a leader in what we're doing here. So please join me in thanking Shalitha. Okay. Do you mind grabbing that table? So now we have something we do here in Circles called listening pairs, and I want to invite another one of our circle leaders up here, Caitlin Grimsty, and she's going to explain what a listening pair is and walk us through what we're going to do next.
Hello, my name's Caitlin, and I'm an addict. No, I'm kidding. I'm poor. No, I'm a mom, and I'm a circle leader because I feel I have a responsibility in my part of the dysfunction of my family and the abusive cycle, and I feel the utmost responsibility to know myself for my family and to have my place in the world. That's that. So listening pairs are going to be where we pick, you guys, everybody, finds a neighbor or two or three to talk about what we just learned about fines and fees. And there's going to be a prompt. 2 questions. And you're going to take turns, and everybody gets a chance to listen, and everybody gets a chance to talk. 10 minutes. That's it. Thank you.
I hope that you all had some interesting conversations. I want to say thank you one more time to all of you for being here, for attending our first Big View event. My name is Erica Latanzio, and I am the chair of the Big View team. Thank you. So before we close out our event this evening, I wanted to take a little bit of time and talk about what our next steps are. Because really this is just the beginning of this dialogue that we've started together as a community. So I think you're probably all aware by now, if you weren't before, the system of fines and fees is big. It's really complex. There's so much more for us to learn. And we believe ultimately, though, that this dialogue that we've established this evening is the right way to start changing these systemic barriers and issues facing us. There's so much more we can learn. There's so many more conversations we can have, so many more people we can invite into those conversations. And moving forward, though, just for tonight, I want to talk about a few options we have for things to focus on. So one area that we believe that we should be directing our attention toward, and this is coming from organizations like the Bail Project, they have identified that $10 monthly maintenance plan fee, the payment plan fee, as an area of inequity that penalizes people who don't have the ability to pay. It's also very clear that judges have a really huge amount of discretion when it comes to deciding fines and fees. So they determine who has to pay. They decide how much that individual pays, whether it's the minimum or the maximum. They determine how that person's life circumstances are taken into account when they set the amount. They decide whether a warrant is issued for that person's arrest for non-payment, and they can determine if a driver's license is suspended. Judges also have the ability to entirely wipe out a person's fines and fees if they chose to. So as we continue these conversations as a community, that's just one area that we think we should focus on. We also know that inability to pay can often result in incarceration. Washington County recently funded a criminal justice system assessment just over a year ago, and this was to evaluate why our jail is so overcrowded. And one of the main findings that came out of that was we have a lot of people sitting in our detention center who are there for failures to pay and failures to appear. Thus far, there has not been a very strong appetite among our justices of the peace of the quorum court or other important players in the criminal legal system to discuss solutions. So we think that this is another area that needs more attention. And then finally, one of the greatest agents of change that every single person in this room has is our ability to vote. Judges and justices of the peace are all elected officials. In 2022, every JP position is up for re-election. Circles is a nonpartisan organization, and we're regularly putting out educational resources to help our community better understand what these different positions do, but then also what power our elected officials have to affect change and to help reduce poverty. So just stay engaged with us. You can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. You can get the latest information and updates from us that way. And we'll keep holding events like this, and we'll have more opportunities to continue this dialogue. Our next Big View meeting is going to happen sometime in the new year, and we'll keep sharing resources and information both through social media and our newsletter until then. I'm going to bring Christina back up.
Thank you, Erica. Okay, if I could have everyone who's part of our Big View team come up here. Make your way up here. Thank you, guys. This team is made up of 100% volunteers. They're giving their time and their energy because they want to see positive things happen in our community. And so we have a lot of amazing projects that we're working on, and we're always recruiting new volunteers to join our team. So if you want to be involved in advocacy, if you have skills in design or video editing, if you like to research, if you like to network with elected officials, let us know. Come join our team and come join this amazing work that we're doing here. So thank you guys for all the work that you've put in. Can we give them a round of applause? Thank you for being here tonight. Shalitha, if you want to go to the back, if people want to talk to you, get to know you better, and thank you all for being here tonight. Feel free to stay and hang around for a little bit, but we really appreciate your time and for being here. Thank you.